All right, folks. So this is the chapter two of section two of Gathering of Soldiers, part one, and it's called "The Street of Great Struggle." And I would say that this would also be divided into four different sections because this chapter is long as well. Yep, the Great Struggle has to be very long too. Anyways, let's begin. Oh gosh, they're coming! Brace for the impact! Lord Pericles did his best to get his soldiers to maintain the defensive position as the enemy soldiers charged upon them. He had originally given a short inspirational speech to them to hold at least until the raided goods had been loaded. So by now, he had hoped that his men, regardless of them being few for the moment, would defend efficiently and as best as they could with the given resources. Turning his gaze to the enemies, he could measure them out to several squads coming, seemingly better armed and trained compared to previous enemies, and fully ready for the chaos of the battlefield. He heard Captain George shouting at his men to start firing. Then the archers and crossbowmen suddenly got up to take easy and clear shots against the enemies. Soon after, the enemy infantries were showered with arrows and bolts, and they began collapsing one by one. Still, archers and crossbowmen were missing their marks quite often, and when the group neared Lord Pericles and his soldiers, a fairly large number of them were still able to fight. Steady! Lord Pericles, who was standing in the middle of the street, tried his best to appear calm in front of his soldiers. Raise your shields! He then closed his visor and lifted up his shield. After that, enemies' arrows barraged on them. Lucio peeked out of the window. Officer Ephraim, can't we fire our siphons now? Ephraim sighed. No, not now. When can we do it then? Lucio came down from the crate. Ephraim glanced at Lucio. I told you, we're not going to fire them until the soldiers outside start pulling back. Hey Lucio, what do you need that huge crate there? Passio picked up a smaller crate. Should we just use this instead? Easier to move and it just looks cooler. Suddenly, Lucio grunted and turned away to try to ignore Apasios. Ephraim sighed. You're so clueless, Apasios. It's because he can't aim well by standing on your choice of crate. Simply said, he's too short, so he needs the extra height to do his job right. Lucio clenched his fist and looked back at Ephraim. Officer Ephraim, you shouldn't explain every little thing to him. Ephraim cleared his throat. If I don't explain every little thing to him at all times, then he'll keep on asking, and you'll wish that he would stop. So I'm just speeding up the process for all of us. Crushed, Lucio turned to Apasius to vent out his anger. And you, have some sense and grow your ability to read the situation. You don't need to ask questions to everything you're curious about. Apasius flinched. Okay, okay, I'll try to do that. You don't need to be so angry, though. Lucio sighed. Gosh, you just drive me crazy so often. You spend so much time in that monastery. You don't even have any street sense. Apasius held up his hands. Why are you mad? I said I will try to improve. Lucio grimaced. I'm not mad. I'm not mad. I'm just saying this because you have never improved yet. With the gun, Apasios pounded on the floor a couple times. You know, why are we back to arguing again? You hate me too? Just like you hate Seth? And really, every time you start it up, I just get trapped in the endless skirmish between us. Lucius started trembling a little bit. I told you. I'm just frustrated that you don't have any street sense within you. Apasios tried to talk back, but Ephraim suddenly moved between them to stop the fight. Ephraim cleared his throat. Calm down, you two. First, Apasios, Lucio here doesn't hate you, okay? Apasios coughed. What? He always gets mad like that whenever we start talking. It's like to the point that he's always in my face. I mean, seriously, everyone else, they're cool with me, but whenever I try to have a quality conversation with this guy, he gets mad. Ephraim smiled. Look, I understand your frustration too, but Apasios, you need to understand that there are many things which you don't know about Lucio. But first, you remember that you do get mad whenever someone calls you lazy. So Lucio's current anger is kind of like that. When Apasios nodded, Ephraim turned back to look at Lucio. Lucio, have some patience on Apasios, okay? It takes time for people to learn, and Apossios may be a slow learner. Lucia remained silent and looked down at the floor. So Ephraim continued speaking. I always have patience on you, so you need to have patience on him too. Love your neighbor Apossios as yourself, and you'll feel much better. By then, the three siphonators got back to gazing out of the windows and watched as more and more enemies came running. After many barrages of enemies' arrows, the defenders of the western street were faced with the enemy swordsmen who charged upon them. Lord Pericles successfully blocked the swordsman's downward strike. Then he kicked on the swordsman's shield to send him reeling back a bit, and finally finished him with a deep stab on the neck. It all took such a short time that the enemy couldn't have sufficient reflex to stop his worthless end. Let's go! Lord Pericles shouted at his soldiers to keep on fighting. His soldiers were surely doing likewise, against an enemy numbering much more than themselves. Thus, he glanced at Commander Lefteris fighting beside him. Obviously, that guy seemed very serious and eager to fight as of that moment, blocking the enemy's blows with the shield and swinging around the mace towards any openings. Commander Lefteris was a competent fighter in the field. He still remembered when they first met. It was back when he received an invitation to work in the Princeps fortress and was on the shipwright to the island. Lefteris was there with him. It was a coincidence that they were traveling on the same ship together, and they got to know each other due to their supervisors being friends. Lefteris talked a lot, way more than how he had been bickering with Lapidos in the fortress so far. So Lord Pericles felt very dizzy by the time they reached the fortress and met with the fourth lord of the islands. Nobody had ever talked to him that much before, not even his parents, because they were too busy working and taking care of the big household themselves to give him any attention. His siblings left him alone too, since he was quite stoic and silent and kept things to himself most of the time. The fortress changed him quite much, most of it in a good way, because he had turned much more talkative and considerate towards other people. Suddenly, someone slashed at him from behind, so he took a quick look and found out that it was an enemy swordsman who had snuck around the defense line. Therefore, he turned around to finish him. It took only a short while, and in front of Lord Pericles, the enemy swordsman fell down writhing and blood squirting out of his sliced neck. He loved slicing the enemy's necks. It was the best show to see during battles. So-called legalized killing. Warfare brought lots of opportunities to satiate one's thirst for blood. Not only that, a blood-stained lord was upheld as greater regards than another lord without it. Adding to that, it would be far better if he had a scar or two on his face and arms, the parts on the body where it's seen the most by other people. Yet still, he didn't like slicing the neck all the way so that the head comes falling off. That wasn't fun at all. Blood doesn't squirt out much if the head is completely severed from the body. So he measured his strength to such an amount that he would slice a portion significant enough which would sap out the enemy's fighting strength, but not really all of the living energy which makes the blood flow out. When he looked around again, he noticed that the enemy soldiers were moving around the buildings to attack his group from behind. Therefore, he concluded that he should bring out the reinforcements inside the defense building, who were agitating for another fight. Thus, he ran and opened the door. Proteus, come out and help us. You got it, Pericles. Commander Proteus shouted and, without any bit of hesitation, immediately picked up his weapons to come charging out of the building. When he got out, he looked up at the roof. Archers, shoot faster! Then, the remaining melee infantry rushed out to fight. Oh no, did it already reach the point that Pericles can't handle them? Commander Kairos thought to himself as he looked at Commander Proteus' group coming out to help. He knew that Lord Pericles was a careful lord, but being this much careful that bringing out the reinforcements this early in the battle was in no sense sensible or careful, but perhaps using unnecessary measures to defeat the enemy faster. He then looked ahead at the street and figured that the enemy won't be going away anytime soon. More and more were coming, yet the siphonators were still holding fire, waiting for orders to come from him. Lord Pericles had once told him that the Siphonators are his responsibility to command, and that the Lord wouldn't mind if he made them fire their shots early or late. It was because Commander Kairos is watching from the defense building's roof, so he'll be the one to know when's the rightful time to be using the Siphonators. Commander Kairos tapped on Captain George's shoulder. George, should we get the Siphonators to start shooting right now? Captain George looked down at the enemies and thought for a while. Commander, I can't say. It's up to you to decide. He then resumed shooting the arrows. Therefore, Commander Kairos looked down at the enemies again. They were clumped up not just at the street, but in front of the defense building's western side as well. Surely, they will be trying to break down the barricaded windows at this point. Go ahead and tell the Siphonators that it's time to shoot. Commander Kairos shouted at a fortress keeper who had come up there to help them with resupplying. The fortress keeper stopped whatever he was doing and immediately ran down the roof. Huh? Who's that? Ephraim said when he heard someone's footsteps coming towards him. Soon after, a fortress keeper ran towards him. Officer Ephraim, Commander Kairos wants you guys to start shooting. Lucio, who was previously sitting down in shame like a defeated person, immediately stood up. Really? Fortress keeper looked at Lucio. Yes, right now. Lucio held up his fist. Yes, I can do this. He then walked towards where he left off his siphon. Suddenly, the window behind him was shattered, and the pieces hit Lucio. Shocked, Lucio turned around and then froze when an enemy soldier jumped into the room. After that, another soldier was trying to get into the room from outside. Two Apasios, in a time span which may have passed less than a single breath, the fortress keeper, who was standing behind him, immediately swerved around him, then around Ephraim, and stood in front of Lucio. Before the enemy soldier was about to slash, he grabbed hold onto the enemy's right wrist, then stabbed on the neck. By then, another soldier had got in, so the fortress keeper immediately finished him off too after pulling out another dagger. After that, one enemy was kicked to a corner with blood oozing out of his neck, and the other one collapsed face first with many deep stab marks on his back. When the small fight ended, both Apasios and Ephraim had their mouths open wide, really wide. Still, Ephraim got back to his senses quickly and started clapping to the fortress keeper's awesome work. Good job, dude. Your work is very much appreciated. The fortress keeper smiled and nodded. Thank you. He then looked at Lucio, who was still frozen in place. I can do this, but you can't. Suddenly, Lucio got very angry, and he clenched his fist. Shut up! I can do that too. I was just waiting to see if you can fight. The fortress keeper laughed. Yeah, but seriously, start shooting those flames. Apasios flinched. Wait, how do you know that those shoot out flames? Apasios spread out his arms. Only the soldiers have seen these in action, not the fortress keepers. The fortress keeper paused for a while in shock, then smiled uncomfortably. I've seen you guys training before. He looked at Ephraim. Officer Ephraim, I guess I'll be going now. They need me back up on the roof. Ephraim looked at as the fortress keeper was jogging away. That guy seemed as young as Lucio and Apasios. Would surely be a good spy to have so that he could know what's going on inside the fortress keeper's group. He definitely had the talent to join the ranks too, and would also be a great companion for Apasios and Lucio. Hey, wait! Ephraim motioned at the fortress keeper to stop. What's your name? I'm Keeks. He sensed that the three guys may need more help in the future. Don't worry, I'll come back later to help you guys out. Ephraim nodded. Yeah, surely, but come back with my remaining gunners, will you? Keeks nodded and went out of the room. Apasios tapped on Ephraim's shoulder. Hey, Ephraim, that guy was amazing, huh? Ephraim chuckled. Yeah, he was pretty good. He then moved onto the window and started shooting the siphon. Therefore, Apasios went back to the siphon car to remind himself about how to use the pump. Soon afterwards, Lucio came beside him and sighed. What's wrong? Apasios said. Nothing. That was my kill. But the other guy took it away. Lucio looked at the floor. It's okay. He must have been agitating in the fortress because they haven't had the chance to fight. We were just being mindful of that, Apasios said. After that, they both laughed uncomfortably. They both knew that wasn't the truth. Just then, Andel and Edvin came into the room. Holy smokes! What happened here? Edvin was looking at two dead soldiers. Apacios and Lucius chuckled. You guys came to help us? Apacios said. Andel raised his fist. Of course! Gotta help my fellow gunners. Edvin nodded. Yeah, but seriously, did Officer Ephraim kill them? He pointed at the dead soldiers. Apacios slowly shook his head. No, a fortress keeper did it. Lucius smiled uncomfortably. Yeah. Edvin moved closer to Apacios while shaking his head. Oh, you must be kidding me. That's definitely Officer Ephraim's doing. He then looked at Ephraim, who was busily shooting the enemies outside. After a while, he nodded in confidence. Yeah, see? Officer Ephraim's always hardworking, always moving to kill, and putting in more work. He definitely killed them. Ephraim flinched a bit and never looked back, pretending to not hear anything. He figured that Edvin is just trying to uphold his pride due to the fact that it was becoming widely known that Apacios is not good at lying. Andel cleared his throat as he looked at the corpses. Officer Ephraim didn't kill them. Those stabs and slashes aren't his doing. Edvin frowned. Just shut up, Andel. Who do you think you are? Discrediting Officer Ephraim like that. He moved over and tapped on Ephraim's back. Officer Ephraim, you really killed those guys, right? Ephraim stopped firing and made Lucio take over for a while. Then he looked straight at Edvin. This guy seemed totally oblivious. So he sighed. Edvin, you may not believe it, but I tell you that I didn't kill them. The guy who killed them is here right now. Edvin immediately spread out his arms. What? No way! You must be kidding me too. I can't believe it. Andel tapped on Edvin's shoulder. Calm down, Edvin. We have someone here who can verify it. He pointed at Keeks, who was standing by the door. Keeks had a blank expression as he was looking at everything unfolding before his eyes. Edvin approached Keeks. Did you kill those guys? Keeks slowly nodded. Edvin flinched. You? Really? He then gazed at Keeks from top to bottom. Keeks pulled out his blood-stained daggers. Here. Edvin slowly nodded. Oh, yeah. He continued nodding. Apacios approached Edvin. Hey Edvin, just believe it. Keeks here is a great fighter. I think he was more like an assassin when he slayed those two guys. Edvin nodded and looked back at Keeks. Well, my mistake. I'm sorry, dude. He then held out his right hand to give a formal apology. Keeks did a simple tap on it, and others sighed in relief since the heated room was avoided. By then, Ephraim went back to the windows to continue firing and got Lucio to fill up the siphon. Apacios approached Keeks. Hey, why aren't you wearing any armor? Keeks lifted up his coat and showed the scale armor underneath. See, I do have armor. Apacios nodded. Yeah, but still, no helmet. Keeks sighed. I want to move fast. Look at many things, and helmets are a nuisance. Come on, it's my first day being allowed to follow you guys, so can I get to enjoy it to the fullest? Yeah, you're right, Apacios said. Keeks came closer to Apacios. By the way, how'd you join the raiding group? My teacher sent me here. Apacios shrugged his shoulders. That makes me want to think. I was born in Principo. I wanted to join this raiding group, but they wouldn't let me, saying that I'm too young for this. As I see it right now, I'm not too young. You and Keeks pointed at Lucio. Him. You guys seem like my age. Well, how old are you? Apacios said. Keeks smiled. Take a guess. Apacios sighed. He didn't like the people who intentionally dragged the conversation to be long. Okay then, I think you're 14. Keeks immediately lost his smile and turned very serious. Seriously? You think I'm 14? Well, yeah, you're smaller than me and you look younger too. Apacios folded his arms. I am 17. Keeks pointed at Lucio again. He seems more like 14 than me. Lucio quickly turned around his head to look at Keeks. Apparently, the previous statement didn't sound good. Therefore, Apacios laughed. Oh no, he's 18. By then, both Andel and Edvin were enjoying this dramatic scene of three boys fighting over such trifle stuff. They remembered their old days in the fortress when they were the ones fighting a lot. However, here they were, watching over other younger guys doing the same thing. The time surely goes by real fast. Lucy approached them very fast and pointed at Cakes. What did you say my age was? What did you say? Cakes stood his ground. 12. Lucio was about to lunge at Cakes, but Apostius came and stood in between them and held Lucio back. Now, Lucio. He's going to be our new group member for today, so we need to treat him nicely. Cool? Lucio glared at Apostius. Since when were you my superior? Apostius couldn't say anything for a while. Realizing this awkward moment, Ephraim decided to help. Hey, Cakes, come over here for a moment. You need to see Siphon in action. Cakes nodded and quickly moved over to Ephraim, leaving Apostius and Lucio in an awkward stance. Lucio glared at Apostius again. Why were you so nice to him? Apostius spread out his arms. Well, he's a new member. I don't want to scare him out. You're pathetic. Lucio then went to resume filling up his siphon. Apostius slowly approached Lucio and stood next to him for some time. When Lucio finally looked at him, he nodded. By the way, I think you guys are very alike, just like brothers. Lucio flinched and became angry. I am nothing like that jerk. How dare you say that? He then shook his head. Well, first, you guys both get riled up fast, also by similar topics, and hold your grounds very well during arguments. Apostius smiled. Lucio groaned in severe anger. Don't talk to me. Huh? Something wrong? Apostius paused for a while to see if Lucio was going to talk or not. Wait, I was wondering if you ever went to Constantinopolis with Ephraim to fill up siphon liquid. Lucio nodded but didn't say anything. When was it? Apostius looked at Lucio, but Lucio didn't look back at him. Lucio sighed. It was about a year ago. Apostius started smiling. Finally, he was having a conversation with Lucio. Then, have you met the old man Krios? Lucio looked at Apostius. Yeah. Do you remember how many apprentices were there with them? Apostius said. Let's see. Lucio put his hand on his chin to think. I remember seeing more than 10. Lucio started smiling, thinking about the past. The old man showed us the siphons that he was selling, but Ephraim didn't buy them. Then he went on showing more barrels of flammable liquid, but Ephraim still held strong and only bought one and an empty barrel for keepsakes. He nodded at Apostius. That empty barrel was the one you used at the previous raid, the thing that held water. Apostius nodded. Yeah, that's right. You know, from your talk, it seems Ephraim is a strong-willed guy who wouldn't yield to the old man's suggestions at all. However, when Seth and I went through with him, the old man pressured him to buy 2 more barrels, making the total purchase 4 barrels. Lucio frowned. We had made an agreement that he will only purchase 2. He lied to me. But I don't blame him. The old man's suggestion was very convincing, Pasio said. What did he say to Ephraim? Lucio said. Pasio scratched his head, trying to figure out how to explain. Apparently, the old man said that he saw Lord Pericles walking around in the city recruiting people, or perceived that as recruiting. Then he said that Ephraim will surely need more of this liquid because more people recruited in our fortress will definitely mean more raiding expeditions that we'll partake in the future. And that'll save Ephraim further time lost taken by coming to Constantinopolis. Oh, Lucio was about to continue speaking, but he was cut short by Ephraim. Ahem. Ephraim waited until both Apostius and Lucio looked at him. Can you guys please fill these siphons and deliver them to me? And continue that process until I say stop? Lucio nodded. Okay, so we fill one up, give it, fill the other one, swap it with the empty one of yours, and continue that process? Ephraim nodded. Yes, that'll be much appreciated. No problem. We'll do as you asked, Pasio said. By then, Andel and Edwin had moved over to the window to fend off any enemies from coming in, and Keeks was throwing his darts to kill others standing outside. Long time later, enemies were slowly retreating, and Keeks stood next to Ephraim to watch them. Keeks looked at Ephraim. Officer Ephraim, where are they retreating? Ephraim stopped firing the siphon. I don't know. Perhaps they're waiting for reinforcements? Maybe, Keeks said. Wait, but how come you knew my name from the beginning? Ephraim said. Alright, so I'll end it there. Make you guys get curious about it. So, yep. And I'll see you in the next one.